السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. إن الحمد لله وحده الصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده. بعد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. All praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and his countless blessings be upon our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Today we are going to discuss about satanic seductions or devil's deception upon the Fukaha. Fukaha are those ulama who are well versed in the fiqh or jurisprudence. As we know that there are four basic sources of Islam. When we see the sources of knowledge, there are four. One is Quran, second one is Sunnah or the Hadith, third one is Ijma, consensus of ulama, and the fourth one is Qiyas or Ijtihad. And this is a hierarchy. This is a sequence. Whenever we are supposed to see any issue, we see in the light of the Quran first, and then in the light of the Hadith. And then we also see what the Sahaba and the later Mujtahideen have talked about that particular issue. And if we don't find anything there, then there is a qiyas. And then there are also rules and regulations for this. It's not random qiyas, ratiocination, that a person just whatever comes to his mind, he just keep on writing or giving fatwa according to his reason, according to his mind. There is a proper mechanism for this to derive the rules from Quran and Sunnah, to derive the ahkam from the basic sources of Islam. And those who legally qualify to derive the ahkam from the Quran and Sunnah, they are known as Fukaha. So Fukaha, they are intelligent people, those who are well versed with the methodology of deriving the ahkam and the rulings from the Sharia, from the sources of Sharia. And one of the narrations says, فَقِيهٌ وَاحِدٌ أَشَدُّ عَلَى الشَّيْطَانِ مِنْ أَلْفِ عَابِدٍ. That it is difficult for shaitan to mislead a faqih than to mislead 1,000 worshippers. Those who worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they are not well versed in knowledge. However, إِنَّهُ لَكُمْ عَدُوٌّ مُبِينٌ is a constant threat on the part of shaitan. He has vowed to mislead each and every section of this ummah. So he tried his best. And in many ways, he also succeeds. Fuqaha, they will enjoy the higher stations in the akhirah as long as they stick to the path of taqwa, as long as they stick to the path of knowledge. But shaitan, he knows, as I have discussed this before, he knows how to play with each section of the people, each section of the society. And he has mastered the art. He is fully artist in this particular aspect, that he can easily mislead the people according to their level. So he comes to the people according to their wit. It's not that he used the same scale or he used the same methodology for all people. He has a different methodologies for different people to mislead. And for Fuqaha, he knows how to put them down. Hafiz ibn al-Jawzi rahimahullah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy upon him, he highlighted certain methods of shaitan, how he misled this precious asset of this ummah, precious asset of the ummah, that is Fukaha, jurists of this ummah, those who are well versed in the Quran and Hadith. They are capable of deriving the ahkam from Quran and Hadith. Allah bless them with this capability. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala equipped them with this capacity that they can derive the ahkam from the Quran and Sunnah. However, as I said before, the open enemy, Quran mentions aduwwum mubin. There are two types of enemies. An enemy, he can assume to be a munafiq, a hypocrite. In front, he says he is a good friend of ours, but at the back, he is doing he is making all efforts to harm us. But as far as the shaitan is concerned, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, you should not be misled, you should not be under the false impression that he's your friend anyway. That's deadly impossible. He's not your friend. Rather, إِنَّهُ لَكُمْ عَدُوٌّ مُبِينٌ. He's your open enemy. There's no doubt as far as enmity and animosity is concerned against you. His animosity, his hatred, his hostility is quite obvious against us. Therefore, we should not be under false impression that he can be anyway our friend. And as far as this group of ulama, and every faqih is an alim, but not necessarily the vice versa. Because the level, the fukaha command the higher level than the ulama. One is ulama, second is fukaha. Fukaha are more knowledgeable than ulama. Sayyidina Abdullah bin Abbas radiallahu anhu, Sayyidina Abdullah bin Masud radiallahu anhu, he used to say to his students, today you have a lot of fukaha, those who have the deep understanding of Islam, deep understanding of deen. Today you have a lot of fukaha, wa qalilul khutaba, and a few scholars. But a time is going to come when you will have a lot of speakers, kathirul khutaba wa qalilul fukaha, a lot of speakers, but a few scholars, a few genuine deep scholars. And we are in such an age that we have plethora of these speakers, but we don't have too much scholars with us. But alhamdulillah, we don't say that there are no scholars, there are the scholars, but it is the number is surpassed by the speakers. And the unfortunate part is that the common masses, they think every speaker who delivers a talk is a scholar. There are certain qualifications, one needs to qualify certain levels, then he qualifies to be a scholar. So getting back to our topic, Hafiz ibn Jawzi rahimahullah mentions the strategies, the methodology employed by shaitan to mislead the top asset of this ummah, and that is fuqaha, how he misleads them. And from there, we should also learn the lessons for us, that it is for these deep knowledgeable people, he plays with them. And then we have to be very much cautious enough so that we are not being misled by him, so that we can at least whatever knowledge is with us, whatever amal or action is with us, we could protect it with full sincerity. So Hafiz ibn Jawzi says, rahimahullah ta'ala, that an example of this is when they put their reasoning ahead of hadith. When they derive the ahkam from the Quran and hadith, many a times they set aside the hadith and they give preference to the qiyas. But this applies not to all sorts of scholars. It applies those scholars who don't have the deep knowledge of deen, or they have the deep knowledge, but they are not having the taqwa with them. So what makes them to do this, we will later on discuss about it. And specifically, they use their knowledge for the debates. Through debates, when they put down others, when they knock down other scholars in the debates, they want to establish their own position, that how much knowledgeable they are. And if one of them uses a hadith as a proof, he becomes ridiculed, even though it is from proper manners to put the hadith first. The true knowledge is that that's the method, that was the conduct of our pious predecessors. We find out almost all the scholars, they have the taraju. Taraju is a technical term that a specific shaykh, a specific scholar, he decreed first a fatwa, or he passed a fatwa first. Later on, he had access to the more knowledge about the issue, about the subject. Then he changed his opinion based on the hadith. Imam Ash-Shafi'i rahimahullah is known for his al-qawl al-qadim, al-qawl al-jadid, his old opinion and new opinion. Likewise, there are a number of ahkam in which Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, in his later age, he returned back from his previous ahkam, from previous decrees and fatwa. Likewise, there are a plethora of scholars. And very recently, Shaykh Nasiruddin Albani rahimahullah is one of the famous scholar of hadith. Taraju Albani, he also made retreat from his previous fatwa. And that's the sign of taqwa. When knowledge comes to us, We give up our own opinion, we surrender our own opinion based on reason, and we stick to the Quran and Sunnah. But when shaitan plays with this, with the people, when the dunya enters into the heart of this type of scholars, then they always try to justify themselves, even if they are supposed to deny a hadith. They try to play with the hadith, with the meanings of the hadith. And then actually their main objective is debating. Through debating, they want to establish their own position in the society. And they never try to just adopt a path that could soften their hearts, that could help people to soften their hearts, such as reciting the Quran, listening to the hadith, listening to the stories to the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and the stories of Sahaba, Ridwanullahi Ta'ala Alaihim Ajma'in. And as far as the hearts are concerned, they don't have the physical impurities. If any part of our body, we have any physical impurity, it is very easy to remove it. We can wash it, we can take it away. But how to remove the najasa, the impurities of the heart? Because it's not a physical impurity, which can be seen, which can be taken away, which can be removed easily. Rather, hearts needs the constant reprimand, the constant admonition, so that they tread the path of hereafter. And shaitan makes these scholars feel that if they do not debate with others, their knowledge is not establishing. So you find out, and nowadays there's no dearth of such people on YouTube. This one is nullifying the evidences of others, the other one is nullifying his evidences. And what is the basic objective behind? Do they lead people to the practical issues or practical ahkam? They debate such issues which are of no importance in Sharia. Millions of Muslims are away from Deen and ahkam. They never try their best to bring people closer to Deen, to bring people closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rather, they entangle people in such issues and ahkam which are of no importance. Therefore, shaitan knows how to play with them. Actually, there is a disease in the heart, disease of pomp and show, disease of ostentation, to be famous, to be popular, to gain the popularity among the people. And for this reason, they find out, yes, how the easiest way to get popularity is to bash others, not to talk about taqwa, not to talk about zuhud, tawakkul, and to remove our impurities of the heart, purify our heart. You will never find such scholars talking about these issues and subjects. On the other hand, they will always talk about the debatable issues. And the common masses, they do derive the pleasure out of it, because at the end of the day, it doesn't motivate them to do any sort of act. Their nerves feels quite pleased with it, because they are not supposed to practice anything. And as we know, the human nature is like a thief. Tabi'atul insani kal lissi. Human nature is like a thief. If a person interacts with the people, then his nature automatically steals from their habits. It's quite obvious. If we seek the company of the pious people, company of the pious scholars, our nafs will try to copy them. Our heart will steal the good qualities from them. On the other hand, if we stay with the people of dunya, with the people of evil, who always practice the evil, nafs will automatically be trained, and spontaneously it will acquire the same habits and traits. So if a person stays with the scholars, then it depends upon the nature of the scholars, what sort of path they have adopted. Do they really adopt the path of taqwa and knowledge, or they adopt the path of debates and discussions only? And some of the early scholars used to say, I would prefer listening to one heart-softening hadith than to learn 100 fiqh issue discussed by Shaykh. Shaykh was one of the famous faqih. It means that actually the basic objective of knowledge is not to gather the data. Basic objective of knowledge is to practice the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just a minute, please. I need to plug it in. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So the early pious predecessors, they used to say, so one of them used to say, I would prefer listening to one heart-softening hadith than to learn 100 fiqh issues discussed by Imam Shuraih, Qadi Shuraih rahimahullah. He said this because heart-softening ought to be sought after, and there are techniques for acquiring it. So knowledge is not desired of its own. Knowledge is a tool, not an end itself. What is the end of knowledge? What is the objective of knowledge? That our hearts are softened so that we get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Shaitan had a tremendous amount of knowledge, but that did not benefit him. So one of the beautiful Arabic couplet is, لو كان في العلم من دون التقى شرف لكان أشرف خلق الله إبليس. If there were any excellence or any virtue in knowledge without taqwa, just the data was supposed to be acquired. If there were لو كان في العلم من دون التقى شرف, if there were any excellence, any virtue of knowledge without taqwa, لكان أشرف خلق الله إبليس. Then the most blessed, prestigious, and esteemed would have been Iblis, because Iblis had tremendous amount of knowledge, but he hadn't the true God consciousness. Therefore, knowledge just for the sake of debating, knowledge for the sake of discussion, knowledge for the sake of acquiring popularity is going to ruin a person. He will never get the true guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Hafiz ibn al-Jawzi rahimahullah mentions that it is better to listen to the one heart-softening hadith than to listen to a number of ahkam, a number of issues. And some of the jurists limited themselves to debates and remained far from their own school of thought as well as the rest of Sharia sciences. Hafiz ibn al-Jawzi says, rahimahullah, that you might find a scholar of fiqh who does not know much Quran or hadith. They assume these titles, I'm a faqih, but it is deadly impossible. How come is it possible that without having the deep knowledge of Quran and hadith, a person will become a faqih? And there are many examples that people who claim to be faqih, they have nothing to do with the fiqh, because fiqh actually means, linguistic meaning of fiqh is understanding, and technical meaning of fiqh is understanding, deep understanding of deen based on Quran and hadith. So the basic prerequisite for a person to qualify as a faqih, he must have the deep knowledge of Quran and the deep knowledge of the hadith. And unfortunate part, alas, there are many people who claim to be faqih, but they have nothing to do with the fiqh. And another important thing when the shaitan plays with this, actually the basic object, there are two types of ahkam. One are mansus alayha, means the defined law. That's the text of the Quran and hadith. And second is mujtahadun fi, which requires the ijtihad, which requires the ratiocination and qiyas of ulama. As far as the qiyas is concerned or ijtihad is concerned, we call it a vanni. It's not definitive. It's not absolute. As that of the mansus. Mansus means which is clearly mentioned in the Quran and Sunnah. So ijtihad happened to be dhanni. It is non-definitive. It's not definitive knowledge. Therefore, there's a scope. Whenever there is difference of opinion in any issue among the fuqaha, it means that there's a flexibility. Ikhtilaf or khilaf or difference of opinion in a particular issue among the fuqaha, among the scholars, is in itself proclaiming that the issue has a flexibility. Therefore, there is no room for the rigidity. But when nafs controls a person, when a person is under the control of his nafs and desires, so his knowledge is also used to strengthen nafs, to make nafs much stronger, rather to accept the truth. So another problem is that some jurists do not admit that their opponent is correct. Sometimes they would even continue to debate him while knowing that he is on the right side. So it is just nafs ana. It's just one's ego that prevents him to accept the truth. The sign of one's sincerity of iman is that whenever we come to know about the truth, we surrender before it, we accept it without much delay. And this is worst of the worst cases, because debate is meant actually to arrive at the truth, not to deny the truth. Abu Jahl, he knew Prophet Muhammad as a true messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Despite the fact that he's the Prophet of Allah, he denied him. So a person himself closes the doors of guidance for him. Imam Shafi rahimahullah, he said, I have never debated someone who denied a clear proof except that he fell from my eye. Imam Shafi had a great respect for the scholars, but whenever there was any issue, and Imam Shafi rahimahullah, he would offer his evidences, and which was quite clear, 2 plus 2 makes 4. But the other party, the other side would not accept it. And he said, I have never debated someone who denied a clear proof except that he fell from my eye. And if he accepts the proof, then he would gain reverence in my heart. I have never debated anyone and cared who arrived at the truth, him or me. If he did, then I would take his side. That is the behavior of ulama, the true scholars. Actually, to topple other side down, to knock other side down, it's not the objective. What's objective? To know the truth. Once truth comes in its original form, then there is no way left for us except to embrace it, surrender before it. And another problem is that debating reveals hidden aspirations of leadership. Actually, why this specific group of scholars, they stick to this path of debates and discussions? Because they want to achieve leadership among the Muslims, so that people can realize, oh, they are having a tremendous amount of knowledge, so they deserve to be our leaders. And some debaters tend towards arrogance, stubbornness, and the use of foul language, turning the debate into a competition of who can put the other side down. And they also take backbiting lightly when telling others about the events of the debate. They would say out of spite, I debated so-and-so and he had nothing to say against it. Iblis has also deceived them to believe that fiqh was the only religious science, and they would describe hadith scholars as those who understand nothing. Actually, there were some, we have discussed in one of our previous sessions, devil's deception of muhaddithin. So how he deals with the scholars of the hadith. A group of them, a bunch of them, not all the muhaddithin, a bunch of them, they stick to the apparent meaning of the hadith. I also discussed about one of the teachers of Imam Al-Khattabi rahimahullah ta'ala, that for 40 years he used to recite a hadith wrongly, because we know that if we just change the vowel signs, if we change the i'rab, if fatha is replaced with kasra is replaced with dhamma, it changes the whole meaning. The whole spectrum of meaning is changed in Arabic language. It is so subtle that if there's a slightest change in the pronunciation, the whole meaning will be changed. And for 40 years together, but it's not applied to all muhaddithin. And likewise, some fuqaha, they don't have the deep knowledge of hadith, Quran and hadith, but they still allowed to be called as faqih. So it is these scholars actually whose hearts are diseased. So these scholars of fiqh, they despise the scholars of hadith. And those scholars of hadith who don't have the deep knowledge of hadith and who lack the sincerity, they look down at the scholars of the fiqh. But the true and genuine scholars, the muhaddisin respect the fuqaha and fuqaha respect the muhaddisin. Imam Shafi rahimahullah, they learned much of the hadith from Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala. In return, Imam Ahmad learned a lot of fiqh from Imam Shafi rahimahullah ta'ala. And there was no despise on either side. There was no contempt on either side. Imam Shafi had a great respect for Imam Ahmad and thought that he is my teacher in hadith. On the other hand, Imam Ahmad rahimahullah had a lot of respect for Imam Shafi and thought that he's my Shaykh in fiqh, he's a teacher of my fiqh. So that's our tradition, that we never separate the things. Rather, they go hand in hand. But the shaitan knows how to sow the seeds of hatred, how to sow the seeds of animosity, so that Muslims are separated up. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that فَإِن تَنَازَعْتُمْ فَتَفْشَلُوا. You must remember that if you fall into mutual dissension and disagreement, فَتَفْشَلُوا, you will all fail. On the other hand, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enjoins us. وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. And this is the job of the scholars, to unite the ummah, not to disunite them, not to separate them up into small groups, into small sects. You see how Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Sahaba ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhim ajma'in, this is the nature of Islam, that it embraces people of different cultures, languages, castes, races, ethnicities. It binds them together. And how come this deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which came to unite all the people of the world, which ruled over almost 3 continents, people of different backgrounds, people of different colors, different languages, different races, different castes, different ethnicities, how Islam beautifully put them together, bound them together. And now it is really, one is surprised and baffled to see that how come the same deen becomes a source of split and dissension. Actually, we are away from the approach of our aslaf, our pious predecessors. The most important thing we find there, the knowledge was used to connect the hearts of the people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The knowledge was used to unite, to bind together the different people from different backgrounds, belong to different nations. Salman is from Persia, Suhaib is from Rome, Abu Bakr is from Arab, Bilal is from Habsha, Abyssinia. You see the people from different parts of the world, and they are all joined together as if they are blood brothers. So Shaitan, he succeeded in this particular part, making this a bunch of scholars, though they are not many, a bunch of scholars who want to get the popularity, who want to gain the fame in this dunya. So how do they motivate the people? How do they influence the people? They start discussions and debates, specifically about such issues which is neither directly connected to the iman nor to the amal. It is not connected to any way. They never focus that how can they smoothen the way for the common masses so that they can feel, yes, Islam is all practicable. They discuss such issues which are unfathomable. And Islam becomes a kind of enigma, a kind of mystery, na'udhu billah. So Iblis, he could successfully sow these seeds into their hearts. And another problem is that they provide, since they don't have the deep knowledge of deen, they have the love of dunya, love of popularity, love of fame. So another problem, another disease of their heart, which Shaitan exploits, which Shaitan easily makes use of, and that is providing fatwa, the religious verdicts, before being qualified to do so. لكل فن رجال. The Arabic well saying is that every field has its own specific expert, and that expert deserves the right to pass the degree in that particular subject. So Shaitan made them, okay, they got the title of ulama, scholar, faqih, or muhaddis, then they passed the fatwa. And it would have been better for them to refrain from giving fatwa in complicated matters, specifically when they don't have the deep knowledge of it. Shaykh Abdul Rahman ibn Abi Layla, rahimahullah ta'ala. Abdul Rahman ibn Abi Layla, rahimahullah, is among the tabi'een. And he says, I have met 120 of the messenger's companions. He said that I met 120 Sahaba, Ridwanullahi ta'ala al-Majma'in. Now from there we can also realize the tabahur, profundity and erudition of his knowledge. Abdul Rahman ibn Abi Layla, famously known as Ibn Abi Layla, rahimahullah ta'ala. He said, I have met 120 Sahaba. When one of them was asked to give a verdict, a fatwa, he referred the question to the person next to him. And they continued to do so until the question ended up being referred to the first person asked. So they did not like to pass fatwa because they were knowing this. They were knowing the fact that whatever knowledge they say, they are accountable for this. If they pass on any wrong knowledge, wrong verdict, they're accountable for this and Allah will punish them for this. Since they had the deep realization of akhirah, they had the full realization of the day when they are produced before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They realize it in proper terms. The meaning of ma yalfidu min qawlin illa ladayhi raqibun atid. Whatever word you spell out, whatever word you pronounce, they are the vigilant recorders who record it. So they had this sense of accountability. They were fully conscious of this sense of accountability that prevented them to give fatwa to people. On the other hand, when this sense of accountability is missing, then people dare to give the fatwa even without the knowledge. Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one of the signs of qiyamah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take away the knowledge. How come? Biqabdil ulama. A number of ulama will pass away until then people will make jahil people, ignorant people as their leaders. Then people ask them questions regarding Sharia, regarding the deen, which they don't have the knowledge of. Then they shall be asked about the deen, ahkam of deen, and they pass fatwa without knowledge. They pass degrees without the knowledge. They are misled and they will mislead others. He also said, Abdurrahman ibn Abi Layla, rahimahullah, one of the tabi'een, he said, I have met 120 of Messenger's companions, Ridwanullahi ta'ala al-Majma'in, in this masjid. He referred to Masjid Al-Nawawi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And then he said, each one of them wished that his brother would speak and give fatwa instead of him. They never preferred, they never sidelined others. They never put them aside. Rather, they wanted others to give answer to the questions. And such is a sign of the true scholars. Sayyidina Malik ibn Anas, rahimahullah ta'ala. Imam Malik, rahimahullah, known for his knowledge, taqwa, zuhud, reliance upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who dedicated all his life to serve the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Malik ibn Anas, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, I have never given a verdict before asking 70 scholars about the verdict. Once I was quite sure and completely, perfectly sure about it, then I would pass it on. One day he said to his students, do you think that I should give fatwa? I'm qualified to give fatwa? His students responded, yes, of course. If not you, then who else? Then one of his students, he asked him, what if we said, no, you're not eligible for fatwa? Then Imam Malik rahimahullah, out of his humbleness, out of his humility, out of his taqwa, he said, I would have refrained from fatwa then. If you think that I'm not eligible, I'm not qualified to, then I won't give any fatwa. It's also mentioned that a man came to Imam Malik rahimahullah ta'ala. Hafiz ibn Abdul Barr rahimahullah is one of the famous Maliki faqih, Maliki scholar. Hafiz ibn Abdul Barr rahimahullah ta'ala. Hafiz ibn Abdul Barr says a man came to, very true, one-eyed man is the king of blinds. Hafiz ibn Abdul Barr rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, he mentions in his At-Tamheed. At-Tamheed is actually Sharah, commentary on Muwatta. Muwatta is considered to be technically the first ever book on Hadith in terms of its compilation, technical compilation. The first ever book is Muwatta of Imam Malik rahimahullah. Muwatta means the trodden path. Who trod the path first? Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba. So they set a route for us. They set a way and path for us. Those who follow them, they will inshallah reach to them. The name of the book is Al-Muwatta. And Hafiz ibn Abdul Barr rahimahullah, he wrote a commentary on this in 30 volumes, 30 volumes, which is known as At-Tamheed lima fil Muwatta min al-Ma'ani wal Asanid. In Al-Muwatta, in At-Tamheed, he has also another sharah of Al-Muwatta under the title of Al-Istifkar, again in 30 volumes. So if we put them together, Muwatta is one single volume book of hadith, and the Sharah is in 60 volumes, huge volumes. So Hafiz ibn Abdul Barr rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions in At-Tamheed that a man came to Imam Malik rahimahullah. Then he gives different accounts, the different narrations. According to one narration, he asked 36 questions. Another narration says 42 questions or 40 questions. So the number is varied based on the different narrations. So we take it just for example, 40 questions. So he asked 40 questions, and Imam Malik rahimahullah, he could answer only 6 questions. And the man was now surprised because he had heard about Imam Malik as a great jurist, great faqih, great muhaddis, and great scholar of Islam. And people from different parts of the world come to learn from him. And yet Imam Malik, I asked him 40 questions, and he was able to give answer only to 6 questions. And every time Imam Malik was not giving answer, he would say, La adri, I don't know. He would ask the question, what's your opinion about it? He would say, I don't know about it. What's your opinion about this? He would say, I don't know. And for 34 questions, he said, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. The person was surprised to see. So people talk much about Imam Malik rahimahullah ta'ala. And yet he says, I don't know, I don't know. Actually, I don't know is a sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When we are being asked a question and we don't have the knowledge about it, the demand of taqwa is that the scholar should straight away say, he must straight away confess that he doesn't have the knowledge about this issue. Sayyidina Jibreel alayhi salam came to Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he asked him, the hadith is famous by the name of Hadithu Jibreel. Hadithu Jibreel is very famous hadith in which Jibreel alayhi salam came in the form of a human being. Then he asked a few questions about Islam, about Iman, about Ihsan. Then he asked about Mata Sa'ah, when is Qiyamah? And Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, Mal mas'ulu bi'alama biha min as-sa'il. That the one who is being asked about the matter of Qiyamah doesn't have much knowledge than the one who asks the question. Means, I don't have knowledge about it. So Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught the Ummah, and Quran says, "Wala taqfu ma laysa laka bihi ilm." Don't get after the thing which you don't have the knowledge of. Okay, then what's the way out, what's the solution if we don't have the knowledge, and what to do. Quran gives a solution. فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Then ask the man of knowledge, instead of just making the horses of your reason to run. It is better to ask a scholar who is well versed and knowledgeable and qualified to answer the questions. Just to stick to bare reason. This bare reason is many a times detrimental for a person, specifically when it sets aside the ahkam of the Quran and Sunnah. It's a cataclysmic catastrophe at that point of time. It's going to destroy a person. So if you don't have the knowledge, then what's the methodology? فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. فَاسْأَلُوا, then you ask أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ, the man of knowledge. إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ, if you don't have the knowledge, if you don't possess knowledge. Because this knowledge, it's not just a person start, as I said before, he causes the horses of his aql, horses of his reason to run, and then he can arrive at a particular solution. No. Yet the reason won't help a person if Quran and Sunnah is set aside. So Imam Malik rahimahullah, he did not answer his questions. And Imam Malik rahimahullah, Hafiz ibn Abdul Barr rahimahullah ta'ala, he again mentions in the same book that Imam Malik used to say, La adri junnatul alim, La adri junnatul alim. The shield of a scholar is to say, I don't know, when he doesn't have the knowledge. But those speakers who just want to appease the people, who want to impress the people, they start the discussions and debates so that people are impressed and they can make their position, they can establish their position among the masses. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us the path of taqwa and God consciousness, the path of knowledge. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from all sorts of seductions of shaitan, devil's deception, which is very dangerous and detrimental. And one must be always cautious about it. So this is how shaitan uses, and a person thinks with himself that, okay, he's doing a tremendous job. He's serving the Islam. But in essence, he's not serving the Islam. He's actually damaging the foundation of Islam. So the true scholars are those who never give fatwa without the knowledge. And when they give fatwa, they're not arrogant enough. And their objective is not to establish their own position in the society. Rather, their objective is to clarify the path to the people. Their main objective is to make things easier for the people to follow, to practice, so that they get closer to the deen of Allah. They get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you will find always that they always talk about Allah. They always talk about the Quran and Sunnah. They always talk about the Akhirah, God consciousness, our accountability and responsibilities. And they try to weld and cement the relationship of the Muslims, not to set it apart, not to rupture it and destroy the image of Islam. And Shaitan has succeeded to a larger extent. And specifically now, when the non-Muslims are also trying their best to set the Muslims apart, to sow the seeds of dissension and conflict among them. And they try their top-level best. Even many of non-Muslims, under the garb of Islam, they sow the seeds of hatred. They are not Muslims, but they want to shatter the sufuf of Muslims. They want to separate them up. And for this reason, and Yahud are very famous for it. And they learn the Quran and Hadith, and they go to the Muslim lands. They go to the Muslim lands so that they could sow the seeds of dissension and hatred among the Muslims. So their mutual affinity, mutual bond Their mutual love is altogether shattered, and Shaitan has succeeded to a larger extent. We ask Allah subhanahu, so we have to be very cautious enough whenever we come across with any so-called scholar who's whom people praise for his knowledge, but actually their main objective is to sow the seeds of dissension and conflict among the Muslims. So we should never support them. We should never listen to them. We should never motivate others to listen to them. Rather, we should, first of all, we should keep ourselves away from them, and then we should also try to keep others away from them. And we must listen to those knowledgeable scholars who always try to join our hearts to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, connected to the true deen, show us the path of iman and taqwa, show us the path of solidarity, mutual solidarity, not of the dissension, not of conflict, not of disagreements after disagreements, and that too in the name of deen. So this is how Shaitan specifically focus upon as I said, the asset of ummah, that is Fukaha. But the true Fukaha, they will never listen to Shaitan. That's why right from the early generations of Islam until now, the tradition goes on. Generations after generations have passed by, but still the example of the true scholars is still with us. We can find the path of these scholars. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to prolong the shade of these scholars upon us and bless us to be in their company, because from there we can learn the true essence of deen. And from there we can know the art of how to protect ourselves from the seductions and the seductive deceptions of Shaitan. And then after discussing about the jurists, Hafiz ibn al-Jawzi rahimahullah, he mentions another group of scholars. Of course, not all the scholars, as I said before. It's a bunch of scholars who try to get close to the rulers and the sultans. In the first instance, is it prohibited to get closer to the sultan? Is it prohibited to get closer to the rulers? It depends upon the intention of a person. Our scholars, they used to go to these rulers. Why to get closer to them? So that they give nasiha to them. Imam al-Ghazali rahimahullah, even he authored the book specifically for the rulers. So Mir Sayyid Hamadani rahimahullah from Hamdan, Persia, he authored a book specifically for the rulers. A man came to Imam Hafiz ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala, and he asked his opinion about the Islamic administration of the state. In one night, he authored the book, As-Siyasa Sharia. Siyasa Sharia, it was written in one single night. So the scholars, they authored the books on the subject. It depends upon the intention of a person. If the intention is of the scholar in order to get closer to the rulers so that they could guide them according to the principles of Islam, not to get their own interests fulfilled, not to get closer to them so that their interests are taken care of. So if the intention is good, then this is one of the best form of ibadah, because the rulers, they hold the bridle of society, and they set the trends for the society. They are trendsetters of the society. So people usually follow what the rulers set for them, rules and regulations and the legislation. So if scholars go closer to this group, specific, the ruling class, with this intention that they give nasiha to them, they admonish them, they provide the religious guidance to them, then it's the best thing to do. Shaykh Mujaddid al-Husayn and Shaykh Ahmad Sarhindi rahimahullah, he was close to Aurangzeb Alamgir rahimahullah ta'ala. Then Mullah Jiwan is one of the famous scholars. He was a mufassir, he was faqih and usuli. He was in close company of Aurangzeb Alamgir, rahimahullah ta'ala, one of the greatest Mughal emperors, and known for his knowledge and taqwa. And it was during his time that Islam was codified. Practically, it was codified. Codification of Islam was done in India during the Islamic rule in the form of Fatawa Alamgiri. He appointed a panel of scholars, and their job was to find out the solution to the issues in the light of the Quran and Sunnah. And it was only possible when king was guided by the scholars. Therefore, there must be a close relationship between the scholars and the ruling class, so that the ruling class, they know how to rule according to the principles of the Islam, according to the principles of the Quran and Sunnah. If this is the intention, then it is one of the best form of ibadah. However, if the intention is other way around, then according to Hafiz ibn al-Jawzi, rahimahullah ta'ala, he was himself a muhaddis, a faqih, mufassir. His famous tafsir is Zadul Masir, Hafiz ibn al-Jawzi, rahimahullah ta'ala. He says it is from Iblis's deception of scholars of fiqh to make them intermingle with the rulers and sultans. They look away from their faults and never admonish them, in spite of their ability to do so. When they see the rulers are doing something wrong, they keep quiet, as if they did not say anything, because they don't want to offend them. They don't want to annoy them. And some of them might even give fatwas, allowing them to do things just for worldly gain. In our South Asian context, we call them government muftis. Government mufti means he has nothing to do with the taqwa. He always supports whatever government wants to pass. He just put the stamp of Sharia on it. Good or bad, he supports all these opinions. And there are three aspects of harm which is involved with such a behavior. The first one, the rulers, the ruling class, or the politicians assume that they had not been on the right path. If they were not on the right path, then the scholars would not come to visit them, or the scholars would have admonished them. So scholars' silence means that whatever they do rightly. There is nothing wrong with it. And they also, when they give huge money to these worldly scholars, they think if there were anything wrong with their wealth, they would not have accepted it. If it were illegitimate, then how would they accept it? And then they are the scholars, they know halal and haram, and how come they accepted it? Then this is the first harm, that it pushes the ruling class into the swamp of misguidance, and because of the behavior of the scholars. And then the general public think that this ruler, his wealth and his action are fine because the scholars of fiqh always visit them. So it provides a kind of license to the people. It provides a license to the ruling class that there is nothing wrong with them. And the third one, it is for scholar himself, because it ruins him. And sometimes they use an excuse just to be able to mix with the rulers. They say, we will not visit the ruler, we visit them only to intercede on so and so behalf. Actually, the devil has sown the seeds of love of dunya into their hearts. So they want to get closer to them, so that they get gifts there. They achieve high position with them. They achieve different sorts of, but we have the examples of the scholars in all the ages, in all the epochs and eras. They're the true and genuine scholars. They will never make any sort of compromise with the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. However harsh opposition they face on the part of even the rulers, on the part of the people, this hardly matters to them. What matters to them? To stand by the ahkam of Quran and Sunnah, and not to make any sort of compromise with it. When the fitnatul i'tizal, that is the fitna of Mu'tazila, arose, and they started propagating the concept that Quran is not the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, rather it is a created thing, it is a makhluk. And somehow they also impressed the Khalifa, Ma'mun. He became the ardent supporter of this doctrine, that Quran is a created word. And Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, rahimahullah ta'ala, he stood like an unshakable rock. He would say, "Atuni bi shay'in min kitabillahi wa sunnati rasulihi sallallahu alaihi wasallam." You show me any evidence from the Quran or the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that Quran is a created thing. It's not the word of God, rather it's a created thing. You give me any evidence from the Quran and hadith. For this, he had to face a lot of punishments. He was pushed behind the bars. In the jail, there was a thief, Abu Haytham. When Imam Ahmad was, that day he was too much tortured, that he was altogether now dead tired. And he was quite disappointed and offended in the jail, in the dark cell of the jail. And Abu Haytham, the thief, then he gave nasiha to Imam Ahmad rahimahullah. He said, "Oh Shaykh, whatever you say, are you on the right path? Do you think that you're not on the right path?" Imam Ahmad said, "No, I fully believe that I'm on the right path." Then Abu Haytham, the thief, he said to him, "Shaykh, I know that I'm on the wrong path. I have been committing theft for over four decades. And every time I'm being caught, I'm being lashed and I'm being whipped. But still I don't desist. And I know the fact that it's wrong, it is haram. When I have the perseverance and istiqamah upon the wrong, why don't I have the perseverance upon the right?" Imam Ahmad says, rahimahullah, he infused a new life and new passion and vigor into me. Then all through his life, Imam Ahmad would say, "Rahimallahu Abul Haytham." May Allah have mercy upon Abu Haytham, who gave me a new life when I was in the dark cells of the jail. So they prefer to get inside the prison rather to support a wrong thing. So shaitan, because love of dunya is a deadly thing. So he makes them to get closer to the rulers so that their interests are taken care of. Their children get the job. Their children get the high degrees in the top universities of the world, just to gather the hutam of dunya. But the true and genuine scholars, firstly, if they feel that their visiting them won't benefit at all because they have set their own way of life, then they don't visit them. But if they feel that they're visiting them may benefit them and they may get closer to Deen, they visit them without having their own personal interests. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens up other ways for them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows how to support his own, how to support his servants. Those who deny from their hearts, Allah facilitates other channels for them, which is, as Allah says in the Quran, those who truly fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes the exit points for them. وَيَرْزُقُهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ. And Allah provides the rizqi to them from such channels they would have never thought of. They would have never expected about. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from the harm of shaitan, all his seductions, from all his seductions, all his deception.
Does this apply to influences as well, Sheikh?
Sorry, come again.
Does this apply to influences, Sheikh?
Influences of Shaykh.
No, does this applies to influences also, Sheikh?
Yes, it said it's not only about the So if the intention is corrupted, intention is not good, then this won't benefit at all. The intention of perfect, he doesn't want his own interest to be fulfilled, rather his objective is to give nasiha to them so that they are closer to the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As we have many such examples, and Imam Hassan al-Basri was known for this. Buhlul rahimahullah ta'ala, he was known for this. Imam Ghazali rahimahullah, as I said before, he authored a book on the subject, giving nasiha to the rulers. Nasihatul Muluk is by Imam al-Ghazali. Dhakhiratul Muluk, Muluk means kings and rulers and sultan. Dhakhiratul Muluk by Sayyid Ali Hamadani rahimahullah ta'ala. And then As-Siyasa Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala. There are a number of plethora of the books on the subject. However, if scholars feel that it is detrimental for them, for their iman, for their knowledge, because the people, the rulers or the politicians, they have said their own way, they don't want to be admonished, or they don't want to get back to the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it is better for these scholars to stay with. Otherwise, their own deen will be affected. Any other question? Zakhiratul Muluk. Zakhiratul Muluk is a treasure of rulers. Treasure for rulers. Zakhiratul Muluk by Sayyid Ali Hamadani rahimahullah ta'ala. Mir Sayyid Hamadani rahimahullah ta'ala. And there is Nasihatul Muluk by Imam al-Ghazali rahimahullah ta'ala. Admonition to the rulers. Then there is As-Siyasa Shar'iyya by Hafiz ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah. That's about the Islamic statecraft. Jazakumullah khaira. How author? Okay, I will write it down. Zakhiratul Muluk by Mir Sayyid Ali Hamadani rahimahullah ta'ala. If I'm not mistaken, it has also been rendered into English as well. But the original one is in Arabic. Celebration of Halloween in Saudi Arabia. I'm not sure about, I don't know anything about what the celebration is all about. Halloween, I'm not sure about, I don't know anything about it. If I could know the nature of it, then maybe I just make some comment on it. وإياك. Wallahi, I don't know anything about it. That was, I believe it was the first time. I don't know the nature of it, what happened there, how it was organized. Maybe inshallah I search for this, or you can just send a link to me about it, and maybe next class inshallah some light on it. Okay, jazakumullah khaira. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, subhanakallah wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Wa salamun alal mursalin. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.